Tonight's going to be something of an odd kind of topic for me, talking about emotional maturity and dating. And it's been almost 46 years since my last date, and I'm not going to be learning for myself, but for you, we definitely want to have your attention to this because it's something we need so much in our culture. So please stay with us. Welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa. Welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. Before we get to our guests, I want to mention that today is the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is in northern Israel, overlooking the Mediterranean and the city of Haifa in the Holy Land. And this is where the Carmelite monks had their beginning as an order. And their devotedness to Our Lady is something that became very important because when the Crusaders and the various Christians from Europe were forced out of the Holy Land, the Carmelites brought their devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel with them back to Europe. And so this is something that we continue, but also especially with the very recent news going on. We want to ask her intercession for the people in the Holy Land, the Israelis and the Palestinians. We pray especially for the folks who were murdered, the 3 Israeli boys, the 1 Palestinian boy, but also the hundreds, some of whom are just folks trying to go about life that are still getting bombed and killed. We want to pray for peace for everybody in that region. And not just a ceasefire, but truly a peace by which they can learn to live together with dignity and mutual respect. So let's keep that in our prayers and seek Our Lady of Mount Carmel as a source of intercession. Tonight, we have guests who are the hosts of a brand new EWTN television mini-series. They've been taping here this week, and their series is called At the Heart of Relationships. And they've seen firsthand, from the confessional to one-on-one counseling, how the lack of emotional virtues can ruin seemingly strong and lasting relationships. They can also testify that when emotional virtues are practiced, individuals become stronger and relationships become more holy. So please welcome the founder of Emotional Virtue Ministries, Mrs. Sarah Swafford, and from the Archdiocese of Mobile, Alabama, the pastor of St. Bartholomew Catholic Church, Father James Dean. Sarah, welcome. Father Dean. Well, first of all, Father Dean, you've been on this program a number of times dealing with related issues, especially in terms of marriage and such, some of the past series that you've worked on. So it's great to have you back here and doing this series on emotional virtue.
It's good to be here.
But it's also nice that you've brought someone else with you who a new face for our EWTN, most of our EWTN audience. You've been on EWTN before, haven't you?
I got to be on Life on the Rock a few years ago, so yeah, it was wonderful.
Okay, well now we've kicked you up to the adult version.
That's right, yeah, I love it. It's wonderful.
And You are originally from?
Kansas.
Kansas.
So,
Great.
Atchison,
Yeah.
Kansas,
Great.
home of the great Benedictine College.
It's
so
a wonderful
go
school.
Ravens, right?
Go Ravens.
That's right.
Good, very good school.
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
school.
yeah.
I've been over there to visit, and I've been very impressed.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, one of my confirmation sponsees, someone I sponsored, is a student there, John King, who's doing just loving it there after finishing his third year. So, and I take it that you all met at Benedictine College because you worked there.
That's right.
Doing some campus ministry, as I recall.
Yep. A few years where I did the Benedictine experiment, where I went off to the monastery and tried it out, and I enjoyed it very much, but just knew I wasn't called to make permanent vows, my final vows. I was there about 3 years and about 9 months. And during that time, I remember I was in the mailroom one time and I saw a talk that Sarah had given. It was typed out, and I read it, and I was just really impressed. I had done a lot of campus ministry work, and I realized just how well she had a grasp of this issue and how accurate it was. And it was, when you can really name it like that, it gives you a good chance to address it in a better way.
Sure. And your husband is on the faculty, but you've been doing this other ministry besides raising your 3 children.
Right. Yeah.
You doing this other ministry. What is it that you mean by emotional virtue?
Great
because
question.
Virtue is usually something I associate with the will.
Right, yeah.
What is emotional virtue about?
Yeah, well, Father and I had a chance to break that down this morning. We did the 5 mini-series, and I get asked that question a lot, and basically it's more putting emotional and virtue together. It's applying virtue to your emotions and to your passions, and kind of like what Father was talking about. I actually graduated from Benedictine also. My husband and I met there, and now he's a theology professor there, and I actually got a job as a dorm director, like a residence hall director, a dorm mom. And we were, my children, Thomas and Fulton, my 2 little boys, were very small. And we lived in the dorm actually for 3 years. And I really had a front row seat to, I lived with 142 freshman college women. So, everyone says, oh, so you got to know the women really well. And I go, oh, where there are women, there are men, right? So I got to see all the interactions between them. And a lot of them would, they knew what they didn't want, they knew what not to do, but they didn't know what to do with themselves. And, how do you grow in virtue and things like that?
But when you say that they knew what they didn't want, what do you mean by that?
Some of the heartache and the brokenness, college, I always say high school is kind of a time where it seems like you're trying to figure things out, and college can sometimes be the time when you're picking up the pieces, and I saw a lot of college students who would come to me and, I'm trying to, I call it the world's idea of perfect. There's all these, you gotta be perfect, you gotta do this, you gotta act like this, look like this, success, things like that. And they were fighting so hard, the men and women, to be all things to all people. And when they finally stopped and said, I just feel like a mess inside. And so there was a lot of times where I think that they knew what they didn't want. Maybe they had some experiences in the past and they didn't want to repeat that. But they were missing a piece, and I was joking with Father today that, chastity and modesty and virtue are all locked away in a vault with Jane Austen, and I would really like for them to come out again, and but they, when I was in college, I had a professor ask me name some virtues. And I remember thinking, patience is a virtue, but that's really all the farther, it's not a word that our generation uses that often. No. And that worries me. So we're trying to bring it back. So.
But it's not only your generation. Folks, my generation, who have been teaching the folks of your generation, don't use it that much either.
Right,
it's just not been part of the cultural discourse. Since the 60s, it's been much more focused on self-expression. Whatever is inside of me, I got to let it out.
Right.
And is that true of virtue too? That whatever's inside, just let it out, and that's virtue?
No. I mean, and that's exactly right. And that was what I was seeing is a disconnect between I know what I don't want, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. So the virtue aspect of it, I mean, my ministry is a virtue-driven, Christ-centered relationships, ministry. But I noticed that there was a lot of people who, the whole idea of your emotions and passions, a lot of people think that emotions and passions are bad and I need to suppress them and, hide them, or they go crazy with them. There's kind of, so what is virtue? Aim to the middle, right? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, again, people think either keep a complete lid because you've got a pressure cooker, or you blow the lid apart and then you got a mess on the ceiling.
Exactly. And so in my hopes is trying to show them not only what are we trying to do? And one of the quotes that we were joking about earlier was, the heart's a beautiful thing, and follow your heart, but please don't forget your brain when you go, and so take your head with you. So just really trying to, a lot of the women and men that came to me would just really, I saw that they were missing some of those key components, some of those virtue, especially in regards to their emotional and passions.
Such as, what is it that they're missing concretely?
Father and I both, we talked a lot. I'm really worried, and Father's really worried. Social media and texting has completely changed dating. When I was engaged and married to my husband, we went through all of dating and all of engagement without texting or without, we had the big, cell phones. And but when I was in the dorm, it was all coming out, all the social media, all the texting. And what I started realizing was, I had one teenager tell me that she avoids eye contact at all possible because it makes her uncomfortable. So they're face down, scrolling, scrolling. And a lot of them, it's easier for them to express themselves through texting. So a lot of relationships almost are exclusively through text. And so breakups are through text, and you're laughing. He's surprised. Don't be surprised. Breakups and all this stuff.
I'm not surprised, but I'm still laughing at them.
I know. So what I was seeing in the dorms was a lack of, to be honest, face-to-face connection, a lack of being truly present. A lot of, one dad told me that the minute his 14-year-old girl got her cell phone, she doesn't really talk with him anymore. She's not really available. And I started seeing, especially with the men and women, especially very sensual or sentimental texts, very emotionally charged texts and social media. And some of the college women and college men really tell me life is about taking the perfect picture at the perfect place with the perfect group of people and then getting it posted. So they have this life on social media that is displayed as the real me versus, that's like the manipulated social media me. And then you have the real person. And what's happening is, a guy will see a girl and say, oh, who's that? I'm interested in her. But instead of going up and talking to her or introducing himself, or, for a girl to go up and introduce herself to a guy, they just jump on social media and check out their Facebook and look at their Twitter or their Instagram, and they judge them based on that. So my worry is, you have all these emotions and passions and, without a lot of face-to-face contact, without a lot of connection. And I'm worried because I think a lot of people are losing themselves in that process. Yeah. So.
And I think when you ask Sarah what they don't want, and I think we have a good clientele there at Benedict College, coming from good Catholic families, sure. And I think a lot of them have already had the chastity talks. And they know they don't want the physical, relationship. They know that's meant for marriage, but I think their hearts are not always in check. And that's one thing Sarah really speaks to very well, is that keeping your heart in the right place in the relationship and not running ahead, not, putting your last name with his last name right away and thinking about how many kids you're going to have and where your house is going to be. And, so I think that a lot of people, their emotions are out of control. And so it's kind of getting control of those emotions, channeling them and correcting them and just, guiding them through virtue.
And also, not only social media, but media in general is just playing on their emotions so much. You have women, all the very emotionally charged, whether it's movies or music or, anything, YouTube videos, things like that. And then for the men, it's constantly everywhere, just an attack on them. And so you have all of this coming in, and it's forming and shaping you. And some of them don't even realize it, And so one of the things I really call out is you have to, put that big bodyguard at the check of your door, the door of your mind and your heart, and really watch what's coming in and knowing how it affects you. Because when you have all of that coming in, it's gonna go somewhere. And usually it's in the form of, emotionally using someone, or that's something we talk a lot about is the cycle of use. How men and women will use one another, and John Paul II says so beautifully that you can't use someone as a means to an end, and that end can't be, your own pleasure, and whether it's, sexual or emotional, and that's something
or status,
Or status.
You can't underestimate the importance of status. And along with this, a book that I've cited many times on these programs is called The Dumbest Generation.
Oh,
I forget the name of the author. I always forget him, but his book, The Dumbest Generation, is about the link that he thinks he discovered between the use of social media and the dumbing down of the population. Wow. So that education and development continues an upward angle up until age 9. And then at age 9, it starts to decline. And that's when they notice when young people are starting to get their first cell phones.
Yeah, 9 and 10.
And so that decline goes down as they interact, again, in the superficial way, and they don't listen to adults in general.
Right.
And so they're only learning what is of interest to their peers in order to stay cool. Not what really is going to help them advance in the world, just the world of their peers, which, as you're pointing out, is oftentimes primarily a virtual world of relationships and not authentic linking of persons.
Right. And that's what Father and I talked, we talked today even. I heard there was a really wonderful gentleman that came up to me, and he had 8 kids. And his first 4 came through, high school and college before social media and texting and all of that. And then his second set of 4 came through with it. And he said, when his older 4 would have some, if a beau called, the phone rang in the kitchen, and his daughter would come down and talk on the phone, and he knew it was Bobby, and he could see them talking, and he kind of knew what his daughter, what was going on. But then with the second 4, all of a sudden they had phones, and so they were talking with people, talking with boys, talking with girls and texting, and he didn't know who they were even interacting with. And he said he just felt kind of like left out, kind of lost. It's almost like the porch sitting of old, where the suitor would come on the porch and talk to the parents and sit in the parlor and get to know everyone. It's been lost, and with social media and with texting, it's even more, kind of under the radar. No one really knows. And so those checks and some of those buffers and places where, hey, who's on the phone? How's that going? Even those conversations aren't happening. So, and we live in a, this is what college women, men, high school, social media is not going away, and texting is not going away. So we have to figure out how to apply virtue to it, because it's going to be a part of our life. I mean, we all have it. So, I'm just trying to really, especially with the emotional virtue, just really getting them to understand what is virtue in general, and then how do we really harness and train and channel our emotions and passions towards the good, taking your head and your heart together.
All right, and it's by Mark Bauerlein. The book Dumbest Generation. He's over at Emory University, and it was a wonderfully done book. So you want to bring virtue to the social media aspect of relations, but are you also trying to encourage these younger folks to actually engage in the relationships?
Yeah, most definitely. You want to speak to that? Because that was something we really talked about a lot today.
We're talking about, one thing Tara talks about is defining the relationship and the natural progression of a relationship. Nowadays you meet somebody, get to know them, it's like next thing you know, you're spend the night or whatever. And there's a natural progression of the relationship, and at each level you should have face-to-face encounters throughout, but especially in going to the next level and, making decisions, really discerning, and it should be interpersonal contact, of course.
Right, yeah.
And paced,
absolutely.
having it paced out,
right.
So that something like spending the night together begins on your honeymoon.
Exactly, yeah.
Amen,
Where it
yeah.
should, yep, so.
It was really eye-opening. I gave a talk at Catholic University of America a couple months ago, and I always ask when I hang out afterwards, what's dating like here? What's the environment of dating here? And one guy said that he kind of doesn't think it exists anymore. You talk, you text, you hang out, and then you move in together. It's like there's not a lot of official dating. One girl told me that, well, usually, and this isn't just at Catholic University of America, it's all over the country, but one girl just said that, well, typically people will hook up, or sleep together, and then when the guy decides that the girl's worthy to be taken on a date and be seen with in public, then he'll take her on a date. And I just,
Look a little stunned there.
I just, you had the face that I
46
had. It's just like, oh my
46
God.
years ago, that wasn't the case.
No, I don't. I mean, my heart just breaks when I hear stories like that, because I want to pretend like it's not true, but it is, and in some circles, and it's just so backwards, you know? And so when I wrote The Natural Progression of a Relationship, I just really wanted to show them, you know, true friends. So it's acquaintances, hey, you know, friends, and then true friends, you know, really having a solid group of female friends, having a solid group of male friends, so that when someone does come along, that solid group of girlfriends or guy friends runs them through the check. You know, it's like the porch sitting, you know, they're running them through the check and saying, is this guy, is this girl, you know, right? And hopefully they come from those posses of men and women, those friends. So, and then having the DTR, defining the relationship, I really encourage men to have clarity and sincerity. We really need them to not have that gray area of what are we? Are we together? Are we not? And with texting and social media, that goes on for 6 months. I mean, I've heard so many stories of, you know, men and women who just, they don't really know what they are. They're just, you know, it's a flirt fest, as I call it, you know, and they, please, like, you know, come out and state your intentions. You know, that was something Father talked a lot about, you know, Father told me that if he was a dad, he would sit on the porch and ask, yes, kind sir, would you like to state your intentions for my daughter?
I'd be a tyrant if I was a dad, yeah.
It was something about a gun, right? In a porch and a
I'd
gun.
have to clean the gun, yeah.
Just cleaning it, cleaning it.
Just clean it.
His direct quote was cleaning a gun on a porch, I think. So, what's your intention, son? And,
yeah, it would be bad.
Yeah, but, and then, so from defining the relationship, really, you know, then you move to dating. Is this something to take a serious step towards discerning together? And then courting is another step, and courting's also in the vault with, you know, Modesty, Chastity, and Jane Austen. So bringing courting back out and really saying, I think I feel called to pursue marriage with you. And those are some serious questions and steps. And so, and then engagement and marriage. That's the natural progression.
One of the other things I remember when I was teaching at the university level is that I talked to some of the young men, would say, you know, I have no clue about how to be romantic. They found it fairly easy to end up spending the night together, but being romantic,
very hard.
that they had no idea how to woo a woman, because in one sense, part of them said, I don't need to, because she's willing to come
anyway.
spend the night together, so we don't have to be romantic.
Right.
But then they also noticed there's something missing.
Oh, yeah.
About learning to express the way I honor you.
It's beautiful.
And they don't know how to, it just doesn't occur to them.
Yeah.
I told him, start with Shakespeare's sonnets.
Ooh,
Learn some,
all right.
learn some of those by heart.
That's great.
And
Girls are
express
melting
them.
on the floor already. That's so great. It's true though, Father. You're exactly right. They don't know. And that's the other thing is you know, media. It just, you know, it's all about take. And so the girls have over-romanced and built up, this guy is going to be the most romantic, wonderful, he's going to sweep me off my feet, and all of these, you know, chick flicks, and it's all very emotionally saturated. And then you have the guys.
Chick flicks.
You watch all those all the time.
Fathers, don't even look at his face.
I know.
Sorry.
Oh, look at his face. He's pretending like he doesn't know.
I know he knows it. I know it.
I still watch Gene Autry.
Gene who?
Gene Autry, I love it. And then, but then you're right on. So then the guys haven't been taught by either their dads or cool people like you telling them to read Shakespeare. So a lot of women are extremely disappointed, or they over romance, and then they're extremely disappointed. And then the guys look at me or anybody else and are confused, like, what did I do, or why why is she freaking out?
I would add another emotion. I found a lot of young women angry, because they're frustrated by that lack of a deeper response, a lack of really being honored. They think that if they show him physically that they're going to be affectionate, that'll be good, but then he's not engaged because he doesn't feel that he needs to.
Right.
And then I find a lot of young women angry at the guys, because it hurts them.
Yeah.
It hurts the young ladies.
Right.
And yet they hear from the culture, no, you're supposed to think that this is okay.
Right.
But there's another instinct within us that says, it's not okay. I know it's supposed to, but And I find that there's more anger among a lot of young women and a good deal of frustration among men who become blindsided because, well, what's she mad about?
Right, exactly. No, it's true. It's kind of like the 80-20 problem we were talking about in the show today. 80% of the time, singles or people who are looking for love, they spend 80% of their time worrying about three things: who they're going to date and eventually marry, what he or she is going to do for them and how they're going to make them feel, and then how good they're going to look doing it. So they spend 80% of their time worried about that, and then the other 20% is left for what I really want them to think about, which is, who does God want you to be? Like, who do you want to be? Who are you living for? What are you living for? Those really deep, awesome questions that are going to form your goals and the roles in your life. So what I'm calling for a flip. I'm calling for a switch, and give me 80%. I'll take 80%. You can have 20. That's fine, but I want 80%. And my line for the women is, strive to become the woman of your dreams, and you'll attract the man of your dreams. Strive to become the woman of your dreams, that Christ-centered, beautiful, virtuous, alive woman, not constantly worried about what you're not, but thinking about, or what you don't have, or what this guy's gonna do or not do for you, but just really becoming that woman that you wanna be. And then the guy that is, if you're called to marriage, the guy that's gonna fall in love with you is gonna be so attracted to you. And that's gonna draw him in, not something you're not, or not trying to change him. And then for the men, I just really challenge them, what kind of man are you striving to be? Look at your life. What is most important to you? Like, what kind of a man do you want to be? Do you want to, you look at your father, you look at really cool priests in your life, you look at, people you admire. Are you taking steps? Are you spending 80% of your time looking at what you want to do, or are you spending 80% of your time worried or distracted by a million other things?
Or again, for one of the way a lot of guys think, is that, am I trying to do what I want to do, or am I focused on what I want to get?
There you go.
Because a lot of times the guys will focus on the toys that they want to acquire, not even so much to enjoy, but as much for the status of having those toys.
Right.
And that's not what I want to do, but I gotta have that stuff, because that's what makes me cool. Yep. And that's oftentimes the way a lot of guys are distracted.
Yeah, well, even with the world's idea of perfect, and you said a lot of toys, it's the trophy girlfriend, it's always having, it's that image and living up to that ego, and and I really enjoy challenging men and women to flip the way they think about what's most important, and really start to ask the hard questions. Like we were talking earlier, like self-mastery, virtue, like self-knowledge. Do you know yourself? Do you know, what makes you tick, and what are your virtues, what are your vices, and kind of looking at those and making it make sense.
And to know them well enough that when I share who I am with somebody else, I can own up to my personality.
Right.
And I have that to share. If I avoid knowing myself, what do I give to the woman I'm dating, or to the guy if you're a woman?
Well, and it all circles back to the women being frustrated with the men. I hear it all the time when I'm talking to the men. They always say, women are so over the top, emotional, I'll never please them. They want what I can't give them. And then the women always say, guys don't care. Guys don't care, guys don't care, guys don't care about anything but themselves or all this stuff. And they always say they're gonna die alone with 100 cats. Like they think there's no guys out there that really care.
That's the girls saying that.
The girls say it. Yeah. But then when I get the guys one-on-one, I ask them, I said, do you care? And they get angry because they say, yes, we care. They really do care. But for some reason, the men and women miss each other. It's just, and the girls don't believe them, and so really trying to get them all on the same page for virtue, and really knowing what are you striving after, and then also just having Christ at the anchor and center of your life is extremely attractive, and that's what's going to lead a lot of people, not only lead families in the future, but lead people to each other. So it's been really wonderful. It's been really fun. It was really great this morning to talk it all out.
Well, one of the things we have to do is take a break, and we're going to come back in a couple minutes to get questions from our studio audience and from you. So please stay with us. Thank you very much, and welcome back. First of all, I want to invite you to come and join us. I have a wonderful audience here. Father, you brought a number of people from your parish down in?
Alberta, Alabama.
Way down there in L.A.
Yeah, just north of Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Right. L.A., by the way, is
In
Lower Alabama.
Okay.
And so,
I was kind of wondering there. I learn something new every day.
this is a lot to learn here in Alabama.
Yeah.
And other folks have come from Texas and other states, and we'd love to have you come and join us. So if you can be part of our studio audience, please contact our pilgrimage department at 205-271-2966 or go to EWTN.com. They'll give you schedules of the masses, the various programs, tours of the studios, information about places you can stay, and we'd love to have y'all come and join us. All right, are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, let's start off with Dorothy. Hello, Dorothy.
Yes.
Hi, where are you from?
Pennsylvania.
Great, and your question?
Yes, great show. I was wondering, what do you think about online dating as, like, for instance, CatholicMatch.com, those similar ones, for even people after they're in college? Is it recommended? I mean, because it's hard to find good people.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good question.
It's great. The people at Catholic Match, I've been able to meet some of their higher ups just at different conferences and things like that. And one of the things that, for me in online dating, I think it's a great way to maybe get to know who's around your area, maybe to get on and know who's around and what other Catholics are in your area if you're having a hard time physically finding them. But once you've met them, I am a huge fan of jumping offline and really doing the things we were talking about earlier, lots of face-to-face contact, not doing a lot of chatting and all of that, but really getting to see each other one-on-one and being up close and personal and not just doing everything electronically, because it makes me nervous. Everything we've talked about, up until now, it's very hard. So
Talking about the virtual reality aspect, you just don't know what you're getting.
You just don't know. And you have to be in the same with them.
Locale. You need to be having personal contact on a regular basis to get to know who they are.
Right.
I've certainly come across situations where that kind of online relationship went on for a while and then ended up being a total deception. The person is not anything of what the person, so that, and so that's something about the importance of early contact with somebody, but also contact, that they understand here are some of the boundaries, because I've also come across people who've gone on to some of these, and they, the same boundaries of, here's the steps of dating that moves towards courtship, and then marriage is when we move together, and that those boundaries aren't always respected. But I've also known a number of very fine weddings to come out of, I know Ave Maria singles and other groups that they've met and had great, some friends of mine in Texas have a great wedding marriage together.
Plenty of success stories too.
So
Absolutely.
Very important.
Yeah.
All right. I have a question from our studio audience. Young lady, where are you from?
Alberta, Alabama.
So you came up from Father's Parish, huh?
Yes, sir.
Is he doing a good job down there?
Don't answer that.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Yeah. Well, keep an eye on him. So what's your question?
What is a good time to start dating?
All right. First of all, how old are you?
12.
12. Okay. So.
I get this question a lot, and I have 3 kids. Thomas is 8, and Fulton is 7, and Kate is 3. And so when I do my ministry, when I'm out with teenagers, it's very hard for me not to think about, a lot of people ask me, what are you going to do with your kids? When are you going to let them date? When are you going to let them have a cell phone? I get those questions a lot, and I'm going to give you my perfect world answer. And my perfect world answer is I pray that Thomas and Fulton, we'll use the boys as the example. I pray that they spend all of high school becoming really close with that male group of friends, their posse of guys, and that they really find their identity in not only in our family, but in our Lord and our family, and then in their group of guy friends, so they can really be there for each other. And then I hope they learn and hang out with that good posse of awesome girlfriends, so they can learn to be friends with the opposite sex first instead of jumping straight into all the dating. And then I hope they go to, after being an RD at a college, I hope they go to college and they spend their whole freshman year creating new posses with their new guy friends and meeting awesome females and all the wonderful things, but that they really establish those friend groups so that then maybe like sophomore, junior year of college, they can start discerning, because I want them to discern vocations also. And so just really discerning what's best for them. And so not to be booed off the stage, but there are plenty of people who have dated and have been exactly where they needed to be. I know 8th grade relationships that have turned into marriages and high school sweethearts, and it always, God has a plan for sure. But I just love the idea of, I make people take the pledge, whenever in the audience I will not choose my college based on a boyfriend, girlfriend, or mascot. Amen. So, like whenever I just really want them to become who they really are and really find their identity. So don't shoot me, but high school works out, but only if you're ready to be that virtuous, Christ-centered, awesome, significant other.
There are a lot of fun things guys and gals can do as they're growing up and really enjoy themselves without the intensity. Oh, we're a couple now, or we're dating and all that.
Right.
Take time with this.
Yeah, it'll happen. You miss a lot. I think you miss. Yeah, I'm with you, Father. Yes.
Take another caller. Hello, Ruth.
Yes,
Hi, where are you from?
Ohio.
And your question?
I'm listening to you. I haven't listened now for the last few minutes because I've been on hold, but the young lady is talking about college in high school. I have to believe we have to start even earlier. I have a grandson and a granddaughter who live in different parts of the country. They've both done the same thing. They've found somebody that they care about. They've bought a house. And they called me, Grandma, we're engaged. This is after they've lived together for a couple years. We're engaged. And then now they're getting married. It's all backwards. How do we reach these people?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, Ruth. That's extremely important.
Yeah. And the statistics show very clearly that people who live together for marriage have a higher divorce rate. So I think it's really bringing that to their attention and maybe giving us some of the underpinning reasons why. I mean, are you not trusting the person? You got to try this out first. And marriage is an all or nothing. It's a gift to your whole self. You can't play marriage. It just doesn't work. So, and when you live together for marriage, you're also usually accumulating things before marriage, together, and you're paying bills together. And so it's harder to separate from that person because you have to divide things up, get your own place, move out, all this kind of stuff. So it makes it hard to break up from a bad relationship. If you're going out on a date with somebody, you're dating someone, and you figure out that's not the person, and you're not living together, you say, enjoyed it, have a good life, pray for me, I'll pray for you type thing. You're living together, you just can't do that. It's just a lot harder. So they really make it work, try to make it work more, even though it shouldn't. So it prolongs bad relationships, and it really harms good relationships because it undermines the dignity of marriage and the dignity of the other person and what marriage is all about, a total gift to yourself.
Amen. I want to just agree with her that I think it should start earlier than high school and college. I mean, absolutely. And I've done quite a bit with junior high students too, especially with competition and bullying and comparing, and because that all leads into our emotional and passion, all that in their lives. And but it has to start from day one. I mean, I just really believe that. Someone asked me one time when to have the talk, the talk with your son or daughter. And my husband and I were talking about that the other day, and it's not one.
You mean to talk about human reproduction?
Yeah, like when do you have the talk with, the birds and bees, that's right. And my husband and I were just talking about how it's not one talk, one time.
Exactly.
It's probably 1,000 little talks over their whole life that are all directing them towards not only chastity, but just, how great marriage, just what you're talking about, marriage, and just really forming their worldview. It's not just this, you can't separate, your sexuality from you. It's, just everything together and having all of those talks over time. That's what's going to win them from the time they're very young all the way up. And obviously at what maturity level they can handle it, But,
exactly. And also
yeah.
a part of dealing with that is taking the questions they have, answering those questions when they have them, but not answering more than what they asked.
Absolutely. It's so true. It is so true.
You don't need to tell them
what they can
everything.
handle.
Just
Right?
answer the question.
Yep.
Let them shut down and absorb that, and then go on when they're ready for the next question. But they know you will respond.
Yep, you're going to you will answer. Exactly.
Something else I want to say about Ruth's question. I think that part of the importance, or part of telling young people of the importance of having a chaste kind of dating and engagement and courtship, is that this is a very privileged period of your relationship. If you think that, or if one or other of them say, well, I can't wait, I've got to be with you now,
Right.
then I automatically would become suspicious. Because, as you know, during marriage, this is not, you can't always engage in intimacy. There are times you have to abstain and wait because of sickness, travel, pregnancy, all sorts of reasons.
Right, right.
And in those times, you say, I learned during courtship that he could wait and that she could wait.
Right.
And therefore, I learned I can trust him or her.
Right.
When we're married and we can't be intimate. I know that because I learned to trust him back then.
Yeah.
If I don't build up the trust at the beginning of the relationship, what makes you think you'll acquire trust later on?
Exactly.
And also virtue is like exercising, like lifting weights. You need to build up. You need to practice virtue to become more virtuous.
Exactly.
And so that practice of virtue will give you the strength to say no, to control yourself. Catechism has a beautiful passage on chastity saying that it is an exercise in self-mastery, and that self-control leads you to freedom. So you're not enslaved to your passions. And I don't want to marry someone who can't control themselves. That would be crazy.
Ma'am, where are you from?
Alberta.
Okay.
All right, Alberta.
There's a common theme here, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is your question?
Well, what is the parents' role, especially once we send our kids off to college? What do we do then?
If you waited to college, it's too late, obviously. But because it is, and I think like Sarah was saying, it's every stage along the way of guiding them, leading them, setting examples for them, setting boundaries for them, teaching them. Because once they get to college, they're going to be out of your control pretty much. In a lot of ways. There's certainly some parental influence you can have, but it's not as it was at home. So I would say that is, it's just something that's going to be gradual along the way, teaching them along the way what's right and wrong, helping them hang around good people. And I know parents oftentimes really are solicitous about who their kids hang around with, because they know birds flock together and they affect each other.
That's a very important thing.
Right.
Well, one that I really love is show me your closest 5 friends, I'll show you your future. Just really who you're hanging out with, who you're around. It's really important.
And this is something where, again, a lot of parents need to stay very involved.
Yeah.
And, from, 11, 12, 13 is when the influence of friends starts to supersede the influence of parents on a lot of issues.
Right. And with phones, they're getting phones at 10 and 9 years old.
Right.
And so they have friends and they're having friendships that parents might not even know about. So that's something that we really have to, it's getting earlier and everything's getting earlier and earlier. So.
And not only do they have friends that their parents don't know about, there is phone activity that is highly, highly problematic, if not immoral, going on, that parents always need to know about. And that, I would say early on, in terms of how early on, when, kids need to know, the ground rule is, I bought the phone.
Right.
Even if you pay something for it, I'm still, as the parent, in charge of the phone.
Right.
You don't have the total control over this, and I will look at your Twitter account, all these other accounts, and see what's going on.
And you
may not like it,
but here it is. Yeah.
But I'm the parent. I'm not your friend.
On a practical level, I met a really great couple, a family, and they actually have a basket. It sits by their front door, and it has a bunch of chargers for phones in it. And when you walk through the door, you put your phone in the charger in the house, and all the phones stay there. So, like when their teens come in, the phones are there for two reasons. One, that way they kind of know they can check on things, but they also know where, in the house, kind of where the phone is. But two, that way the teens and young adults are present. Everyone's just not, and the parents are not just hanging on their phones and distracted from what could be really great family time. So I thought that was a really great idea.
It's also important to have computers and such in public places so that parents can keep an eye on
accountability. Absolutely.
But that question, I think parents have to give the kids the tools along the way, because they're going to get to the level where they're going to have to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
They need those tools. They need to understand virtue. They need to understand the blessing of waiting, like we've been talking about, and all the graces and that are available to them.
Yeah, definitely.
I have another question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
Strike number 3, Father. I'm from St. Bartholomew's.
You got some brave souls there. This is great.
Really.
I got some hams there.
You got some hams.
Well, that's the pot calling the kettle black. What is your question?
Well, you can't help but wonder how much of this is attributed to the fact that so many families are now single-family homes. And with that being the case, where is the most help needed? With that single parent or with the children in that single-family home?
I think it's a mutual thing. I mean, because that's why the kid needs more help, because you have just one set of eyes, one set of hands, to do the job. And usually they're busier because of the fact that they're doing it by themselves. They're trying to do everything by themselves. And not always their fault, of course. Sometimes they're abandoned, sometimes a spouse could pass away. But it certainly is a very difficult thing. I remember I had a young lady in my parish one time who had a couple of young boys, and they became, of age, getting up there a little bit. And one of them was talking to her, and she said, "Are you comfortable talking?" And he wasn't comfortable talking to her, so she asked if he'd like to talk to me. And he said, "Yeah." So I talked to him, about, some things, some maturity aspects of male, life, and it was really good. But if they don't have that in the home, they need to be connected to some good male role models.
Absolutely.
This is something where the church is going to have to develop new roles. And I don't mean just the clergy or religious, but the members of the parishes are going to very much have to try to have a new imagination about how we deal with single-parent homes. 43% of all children in the country are now born to unwed mothers. This is this is new. This is a development. In 1960, it was 5%, and in the 2010 census, it was 43%. And this is a very, very high-risk population. And statistically, 60% of their daughters become unwed mothers. Not 80% of all those kids, but 80% of the people who are in prison are the children of unwed mothers. Now, this means there's a great service. We have to look at this not as, this is terrible. No, we have to say, what can we do as a church to help enter into support relationships as family as parish members who take the place of mostly of men who abandon the women and children they've sired. But it's also an increasing number of women who are abandoning their children, often because of their own drug addictions. So these are very hard realities, and for the church to be involved in that is going to be something we have to we have to reimagine that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we have to it's going to take a lot of thinking, and a lot of successful parents and grandparents will be the ones, I think, that can take a great role in that. So that's something for us to think about. We have Kathy on the line. Hello, Kathy.
Hi, Father. How are you?
Fine. Where are you from?
I'm from Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, great. Good to have you. And your question?
I heard you all talking a lot about the college students know what they don't want, and there's a lot of don't do this, don't do that. So I just wanted to ask, what is your advice? What should they do? How can they find in themselves what it is that they do want? How can they clarify that? What can they do to go about pursuing that? And how can we help parents be comfortable encouraging their children and teaching them how to have a right, God-like relationship?
Oh, very good set of questions, Kathy. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it was one of my favorite things that I like to talk about is, you know, when you do ask those big, instead of replacing the 80-20 problem with my, you know, real life big three of, you know, who do I want to be? What, you know, who am I living for? What am I living for? That kind of thing. When you sit down, I really encourage a lot of, you know, actually I'll do this with different, you know, young adults and teens is get a piece of paper, get a pen, and I mean, I like to go before the Lord, go into adoration, go before the Lord and write, what are my goals and what are my roles? So what are my goals? Based on, you know, those questions, those big questions, what do I really want from my life? And it's sitting in front of our Lord really helps. Because if you don't make, you know, if you don't ask Jesus to help you set your priorities in life, then he's going to fall further and further down the list. And so to be able to sit in there and say, this is what I want from my life. But then just as important is the roles. You know, I'm a son or daughter of God. I'm a son or daughter of, you know, awesome parents. I'm a sibling. And really writing out all the goals. I'm a student. I'm an athlete. I'm, you know, what exactly do I do? But then evaluating those goals and saying, what are the major obstacles that stand in the way of me being able to do this? You know, and because if you don't name it and claim it, if you don't write it down, and if you're not constantly evaluating it, it's going to be really hard, you know, to say, I want to be great. What does that really mean, you know? So.
Yeah, exactly. That's, as a matter of fact, that's sometimes on the Facebook pages, people say, what's your goal in life? To be great. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And, you know,
it's a good goal, but what does it exactly mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, at least they're
Maybe
striving for
robber.
something, right? I want to be a great bank robber. Yeah.
But I think Sarah's point about the posse, you know, having a good group of friends, I think that's very important in defining who you are. Having someone else to have those objective eyes looking at your life to kind of give you insight and call you to accountability.
Yeah.
You know, those things, I mean, if you get out there by yourself, I mean, you're going to get picked off.
What you worry about and what you spend most of your time doing is, you know, you have to really look at what am I doing with my life?
And I would even put the question, I think I agree with you about before the Blessed Sacrament, but put it, Lord Jesus, what do you want for me?
Isn't that it's a prayer in itself.
Exactly.
I just love it. Yeah, absolutely.
We have Greg on the line. Hello, Greg.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Cape Cod.
Great. And your question?
My question is, I'm in my 40s, and, you know, I've been in relationships. I have a child. He's grown. He's in the military. And being single, I'm comfortable with it. Should I stay focused on, I'm a musician, should I stay focused on being just a musician and doing my thing, or should I keep my options open to possibly looking into maybe someday having another relationship? Because there's times where, like I said, I'm comfortable being single, and it's almost like I've been there, done that, and okay, my son's doing great, and maybe someday, God willing, I might be a grandfather, but should I stay focused on just being single and being comfortable with it, or should I keep my options open to maybe having another relationship?
All right. What do you want to say to that?
Well, I'd say from a church perspective, I would ask, first of all, I guess you may have been married before. It sounds like you said again. So the question would be, are you free to marry? Mm-hmm. You know, are you free, or do you have an outstanding marriage that is considered sacramental until, you know, the church dictates otherwise. That would be a good question.
I would say, our Lord Jesus Christ and virtue, and making sure that you're, living whole and healed and really, doing well in your own life. And then as you're living, continue to ask God if that's His will for Him to send someone into your life. That's great. But I liked what he said, that I'm comfortable, not always constantly being worried about I'm not in a relationship, or, there's just so much obsession and worry about always being in a relationship. So just really staying close to our Lord and asking Him really what He wants for your life.
And again, with Father Dean's point about marriage, it's not just being in a relationship. You're talking about a commitment there in marriage. Right. And as a grandfather, you're going to be irreplaceable. Nobody else will be able to be the grandfather of that child. Your son's mother was irreplaceable. I don't know what that is. And we have to understand that the committed relationship is about being irreplaceable to each other and to our children. This is something that's extremely important. But something that is also irreplaceable is that we've run out of time. Yeah. Thank you both for being here. I want to again encourage you to check out Emotional Virtue Ministries, which is at emotionalvirtue.com. Also, St. Bartholomew Catholic Church down in Alberta, which is stbartsalberta.com. Get on down. It's a great parish. I've been there before. And Father, would you join me in giving a blessing? May Almighty God bless you and keep you. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We can bring Sarah and Father here to do this series because you make this network possible. So please keep us in between your gas bill, electric, and cable bill. Thank you.